Hi, welcome back to another video by Jimthecarguy. If this car looks familiar, it should, because I just did the front tie rod ends on it, as well as the starter. But the customer wanted me to rotate the tires before I got the alignment reset on it. And when I pulled the tires off to rotate them, I take the tire off the car, and this falls out. Looks like sort of like a horseshoe. So let me just show you what the problem is with this. And we are going to be replacing the strut assembly on this particular vehicle, because it's the spring that actually broke, and it's logical just to do what they call a quick strut to replace it. Instead of changing just the spring, we're going to replace the strut, because it is a 98, it is an older vehicle. So we're going to change the whole assembly. So let me bring you in there, I'm going to show you what it looks like and what we're going to do to resolve this issue and get it out the door. Alright, this is obviously the strut. And the piece that busted off is right there. You can see where it rotted right through from the rust and corrosion. It actually rotted through. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change the whole assembly. We're going to change this spring, of course. We're going to change this bearing plate up on top right here, and we're also going to replace the strut itself, because as you can see, it's a significant amount of rust taking place here. So all right, let me get some tools and let's get started. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come into the trunk area before we do anything, and we're going to remove the nut underneath here. That's the one right there. This one, it's a 13, I think it's a 13 millimeter. We're going to take that off, and once we take it out, then we'll lift it back up. Now you can use a ratchet, you can use a wrench, you can use whatever you want. We'll break it loose. Once you break it loose, just take it totally off. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we'll lift the car up and we'll continue from underneath. Okay, let's lift it up. Obviously we have the car back up in the air. We're going to need to remove this bolt here and this bolt here. You can see I sprayed them already with the penetrating oil. So we're going to loosen this nut almost all the way off. Same thing over here, almost all the way off. And then we're going to come up top right there. And these two 13 millimeter screws here, we're going to take those out. Now, I want to point this out to you. This side here, as you can see, it's not a regular nut that's on here that you can hold. So I think this is either 14 or 15 millimeter. You slide it over the top, and this should be splined inside there. So we're going to take this nut off, and we're going to see if it comes out. If it doesn't, we're just going to tap it out. We're just going to screw that back on for a minute. Same thing here. Now, the reason that I left these on there like that is because this is splined here. We need to get those out without damaging the threads on here, because we need to reuse it. Now, you have two options. You can unscrew the nut a little bit, put your drift on here like this, and tap it out, or you can put it on just like this here, the nut, and just tap it. Same thing here. Comes right out. That's the way, obviously, I always do it. And remember what I was telling you about it being splined? You see how the nut and the bolt is splined? It actually eats right into the to the mounting bracket right here. And now the reason we left the nut partially screwed on is so that we didn't damage the threads by accident. All right, so now we can take the nuts off. We could take the nuts off the rest of the way. And now these studs will come right out. I'm going to need two hands to do it, but I'll show you. And you'll take some brass strips or whatever, or metal, and just tap it. Comes out fairly easy. Same thing up top here. This is what I mean about the bolts being threaded. You see how they fit in there like that. All right, don't lose them, we're gonna need them. Next thing we're gonna do is, this pulls out here. In here with a screwdriver, and it usually just pulls right out, not a big deal. Next thing we're gonna do, before we pull it out too far, we don't wanna stretch this hose too far. So now we're gonna loosen up those 13mm bolts up on the top and take them out. Now you can use a He-Man extension, or you can use a short extension, whatever works for you. Once these bolts are broken loose, they usually come right out. And then you can just take them out by hand. Don't lose them, because your chances are you're going to need to reuse these again to put it back together. It may drop down a little bit, so just watch your fingers so you don't hurt your hands. Or it may not. Now our strut is disconnected, up top as well as on the bottom. It's just rusted in there now, so when we get a big prod bar, we're going to push it out of the way. And you want to be careful with this brake hose here. You don't want to break the line. So this is now coming out, so we're just going to persuade it a little bit. It's a mechanic's best friend, right? The bigger the hammer, the better it goes. All right, when we take this out, and I'll show you what that spring looks like. That's the broken spring. That was actually laying up inside there. All right, let's grab our new strut and let's put it back together and get this job wrapped up. Okay, now we got our replacement strut. We're going to put it back into the vehicle the same way we took it out. Push it in through here first. Watch it don't scratch the body of the car. And turn it. And before we do anything, let's grab some screws. They did come with new ones, so we're going to use the new ones now. We're not going to reuse the old ones. Just going to line it up. We're just going to catch it up in the top here for now. We're not going to tighten it in tight. We're just going to catch them in there by a couple of threads. Okay, now that we have it caught, we're going to reinstall the strut back onto here. This is a little bit difficult sometimes because it is tight. Pry bar or whatever just to get it back in there. Center it, and then we can put the new bolt or the old bolt back through here. You can get in here with this pry bar and just pull it back in until you can get the bolt in through the opposite side. Then you can just tap it in. Now we can tap it through like that, and then we'll put the bottom bolt back in. And you can just pry it as needed to get the bolt to line up again on the other side. And then once you got it caught on the other side, you can just tap it through. Watch your brake lines, don't damage it. Tap them in, and then we can just shoot it in with the air gun. Now sometimes when you shoot these in, the bolt will rotate, so you can hold it on the other side with an open end wrench just to keep it from turning. And you make it very tight to pull the threads, the splines into the knuckle. Now obviously if you don't have an air gun, you'll have to do it by hand, and it'll be a little bit difficult by hand, but you can do it. Next thing we're going to do is tighten up those bolts off the top up here. want these tight, but not tight enough to strip the holes out. I'm going to add, foolish thing, but I just want to mention this. When you're pushing on a ratchet, never push with a closed hand. And the reason I say that is if your hand slips and your knuckles hit something sharp, you're going to rip up your knuckles. Always push with an open hand. If it slips, the worst that's going to happen is your hand is going to hit the fender, but your knuckles won't get eaten up. All right? Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to lower the vehicle down, and we're going to tighten up that bolt up top. But that's pretty much the way it looks right now. Struts back in place. It's just my the bolts, I put these back in the same way that they came out. Those two up there are tight. Now we're going to lower it down and tighten up the bolt up top. So let's continue. Okay, now that we got it back down on the ground, we're just going to screw that nut back on in here. Okay. Alright, and that's it. We're all nice and tight. Everything's all set. The bolt up top is tight. Everything down the bottom over here is tight. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around to the other side, and we're going to duplicate this on the other side. Alright, thanks for watching. Questions or comments, drop me a line. Be more than happy to talk to you about anything. Alright, and like always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.